What if the most dangerous people in your life aren't loud, but silent? The ones who smile while slowly breaking your spirit. Toxic people don't always scream. They manipulate, twist, and drain you without warning. But you don't have to fight them with anger. You can outsmart them with calm, with clarity, and with stoic strength. In this video, you'll learn 8 powerful tactics to protect yourself without losing your peace. From mastering silence to setting firm boundaries, you'll discover how to rise above toxic games and live on your terms. If you're ready to take back control, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Let's begin. Number 1. Master the art of silence. In a world that rewards noise, attention, and constant reaction, silence is an act of rebellion. It is a form of discipline, of inner armor. And for the Stoics, it was one of the highest expressions of strength to remain silent, not because you are weak, but because you have the self-control to choose your response rather than be dragged by emotion. That is the mark of a powerful mind. Epictetus, born a slave and later revered as a Stoic teacher, understood this better than most. He taught his students, "It is not things that disturb us, but our interpretations of things." In other words, what happens is less important than how we react to it. Silence gives us space between the event and our interpretation. It creates room for reason to speak before the tongue does. Toxic people, on the other hand, are masters of provocation. They bait you with subtle digs, twisted words, false accusations, and exaggerated emotions. And their goal is simple: get you to explode. Because once you react emotionally, they gain control. You become the unstable one, the difficult one, the one who overreacts. Now they've won, and all they had to do was press the right button. But silence? Silence is a locked door. It leaves them fumbling. It forces them to sit with their own chaos, with nothing to latch onto. It creates discomfort, because people like that depend on your reaction to justify their actions. When you don't give it to them, their power crumbles. Let's look at a real example. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king of Rome, faced betrayal on a scale few of us can imagine. Avidius Cassius, one of his most trusted generals, declared himself emperor while Marcus was still alive. It was a direct challenge, an act that could have started civil war. The world expected Marcus to lash out. But what did he do? He waited. He said nothing in public. He sent no angry decree. He showed no panic. He chose silence. And in that silence, Cassius's support collapsed. Without Marcus feeding the fire with rage, the rebellion burned out on its own. Marcus didn't need to shout or threaten. His silence was enough to show everyone where the true power lived. This was not passivity. It was precision. He allowed the facts to speak louder than his emotions. That is what silence gives you. Time, control, clarity. Seneca put it clearly. No man was ever wise by chance. Silence is not just about keeping your mouth shut. It is about knowing when speaking serves your purpose, and when it only serves your enemies. It's about recognizing that every word you say in anger may become a weapon used against you later. That every defensive explanation may open a crack in your armor. And that sometimes the most intimidating response is none at all. You've probably experienced this yourself. Think about the last time someone tried to insult you, push your buttons, or make you look foolish. Did reacting help? Or did it only give them more fuel? What would have happened if you had simply looked at them, said nothing, and walked away? The Stoics trained for that moment. They trained their minds to remain still, while others lost theirs. They knew that silence isn't just the absence of speech, it is the presence of mastery. So let the world shout. Let the toxic people spin their games. You stay silent, stay focused, stay dangerous, because the one who does not react holds all the power. Number 2, set unbreakable boundaries. You cannot have peace without boundaries. You cannot have self-respect without limits. And you cannot live a life of strength if you let people walk through your mind with dirty feet. The Stoics didn't talk about boundaries in modern psychological terms, but they lived by them, because to the Stoic, protecting your inner life, your judgment, your reason, your peace, was more sacred than protecting your reputation. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." But what he didn't say outright is this: your thoughts are deeply shaped by who you allow into your life. Every time you let someone cross a line unchecked, speak to you with disrespect, or violate your space without consequence, you are letting your soul be colored by their chaos. Boundaries, then, are not walls of isolation. They are the architecture of a sane and powerful life. Toxic people don't respect polite requests. They don't listen to vague signals. They test, they push, they invade. Not because they misunderstand you, but because they want to see what you'll tolerate. And if you don't enforce your limits with clarity and consistency, they will keep going until there's nothing left of your peace. You teach people how to treat you by what you accept. Think of Cato the Younger, the Roman senator known for his unshakable integrity and Stoic discipline. He was surrounded by corruption, flattery, and political manipulation. Yet he never compromised. He set clear ethical boundaries and refused to bend even when it cost him power, comfort, and ultimately his life. To Cato, living without boundaries was worse than death itself, because it meant abandoning the principles that defined him. That's what unbreakable boundaries do. They don't just protect you, they define you. They say, "This is who I am. This is what I will not allow, and I do not need to explain that to anyone." But here's the key. Boundaries don't have to come with rage. You don't need to scream or explain yourself endlessly. In fact, the more emotional you get when setting a boundary, the more power you give away. Set it calmly, repeat it once, and enforce it, not because you're angry, but because your peace is not up for negotiation. Seneca said, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you." That means you must first create a space where respect is the only currency, and that space is built with your boundaries. No one is entitled to your time. No one has a right to your energy. Your life is not a public park. It is a private temple, and every time you enforce a boundary, you honor that temple. So from now on, protect your peace the way a soldier protects a fortress, not with hatred, but with resolve. Let people call you cold. Let them say you've changed. You are not here to be liked by those who benefit from your silence. You are here to live by principle. And if someone cannot respect your boundaries, they do not deserve access to your life. Number 3, refuse to play their games. Toxic people don't argue in good faith. They don't seek truth, clarity, or resolution. They seek power, and they do it through games. Mind games, emotional games, psychological warfare disguised as conversation. One minute they're the victim, the next the accuser. They shift the ground beneath you until you don't know what's real anymore. That's not conflict, that's manipulation. And the only way to win is not to play. The Stoics warned us about this long before psychology gave it a name. Epictetus taught, if a person gave away your body to some passerby, you'd be furious. Yet you hand over your mind to anyone who comes along, so they may abuse you, leave you agitated and confused. Have you no shame? That's what happens when you engage with toxic people. You hand over your inner stability. You let them write the narrative. They say something false or cruel, and now you're explaining, defending, justifying. And with every word, you sink deeper into their control. Because here's the truth. Toxic people don't want your explanation. They want your reaction. That's their fuel. That's the proof they need to keep playing the game. Because now you've accepted the invitation to chaos. Look at Socrates, not just as a philosopher, but as a master of refusing to play the game. When he was accused by corrupt politicians in Athens of corrupting the youth and dishonoring the gods, he didn't beg for mercy. He didn't scream about injustice. He didn't panic. He calmly questioned their logic, exposed the contradictions, and let his clarity do the work. Even when sentenced to death, he stayed composed. Why? Because he refused to let dishonest men dictate his inner state. He knew the only real victory was keeping his soul intact. That's the power you hold when you walk away from the game. When you say, I don't need to argue. I know the truth. That is not weakness. It's the highest form of strength. Because it means you are no longer controlled by their distortions. You are grounded in your principles. You're no longer reacting. You're observing, learning, and protecting your peace. Toxic people will accuse you of being cold when you stop engaging. They'll say you don't care when you stop explaining. Let them. Their confusion is the sound of their manipulation failing. Seneca once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And that's what happens when you stop playing their game. You don't become what hurt you. You don't match their chaos. You rise above it. And here's the secret. When you stop reacting, you start seeing clearly. You begin to notice their patterns. You realize they're not deep or powerful. They're just repetitive. They use the same tricks, the same blame, the same fake tears, the same provocations. And once you see it for what it is, the illusion breaks. So don't argue. Don't beg. Don't try to convince someone who has no intention of listening. Just exit the game with dignity, with silence, with the quiet power of someone who no longer needs to win because they've already won the moment they chose peace over performance. Number 4, turn their negativity into fuel. Toxic people want one thing above all, to make you doubt yourself. They criticize not to help you grow, but to shrink you. They mock your dreams, question your worth, and throw subtle jabs at your progress. Not because you're weak, but because your strength threatens them. And when that doesn't work, they play the victim. They want to pull you down into the pit where they live. But here's the Stoic truth. You don't have to accept their poison. You can alchemize it. The Stoics believed that adversity was not the enemy. It was the teacher. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." What did he mean by that? He meant that every insult, every doubt, every attack can become fuel. Fuel for clarity, fuel for discipline, fuel for focus. You see, the moment you stop taking things personally, you start gaining power. When someone says, "You'll never make it," you don't argue. You let that doubt burn in you. And instead of destroying you, it sharpens you. You get stronger. You get more disciplined. You work in silence and let results answer for you. Think of Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years, ridiculed, degraded, isolated. The goal was to break him, to silence his beliefs and reduce him to bitterness. But Mandela used that time not to collapse, but to transform. He read philosophy, including Stoic texts. He trained his mind. And when he was released, he didn't emerge seeking revenge. He emerged with vision, discipline, and unshakable poise. The negativity that was meant to crush him became the very fire that forged his leadership. That's what Stoics do. They take what's meant to hurt and turn it into something useful. And it starts with this: realizing that someone's insult says more about them than it does about you. If someone mocks your ambition, it's likely because they gave up on their own. If they criticize your progress, it's because they feel left behind. Don't drink their venom. Turn it into medicine. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." So every time someone doubts you, thank them silently, because they're giving you material. They're giving you weight to lift, fire to temper your resolve, shadows that sharpen your light. Don't just survive the attack, use it. Let their cruelty remind you what kindness looks like. Let their chaos push you toward order. Let their negativity remind you of the discipline you promised yourself. And above all, don't respond with words. Respond with transformation. Because there is no comeback stronger than thriving in full view of those who wanted to see you fall. Number 5, guard your mind like a fortress. The most valuable territory you will ever protect is not your home, your bank account, or your reputation. It is your mind, because everything flows from it. Your decisions, your peace, your relationships, your identity. And in a world full of manipulation, distraction, and emotional warfare, your mind must become a fortress. The Stoics were obsessed with protecting the mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't just being poetic. He was issuing a warning. If you don't guard your inner world, the outer world will control you. Toxic people know this. They don't always attack directly. Instead, they sneak in through suggestion. A small doubt here, a comparison there, a whispered comment, a passive-aggressive remark, a guilt trip masked as advice. Their power lies not in what they do, but in what they make you think. They make you question your worth, your decisions, your memories. And once they're in your head, they don't need to control you anymore. You'll do it yourself. That's why the Stoic trains daily, not just in philosophy, but in mental discipline. Like a soldier sharpening a sword, the Stoic sharpens the mind by choosing what to allow in. You can't consume trash and expect clarity. You can't surround yourself with bitter, shallow, chaotic people and expect to be calm, grounded, and wise. Look at Admiral James Stockdale, a real-life Stoic who was shot down during the Vietnam War and spent over 7 years in a prisoner of war camp. He credited his survival to the teachings of Epictetus. Tortured, isolated, psychologically broken by his captors, Stockdale said it was his control over his mind that kept him alive. He could not control the pain. He could not control the cruelty. But he could choose what thoughts to feed, what meaning to assign to his suffering, what identity he would protect inside. That choice made him unbreakable. That's the kind of fortress you must build, not made of stone, but of principles, of clarity, of conscious choices. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality," meaning much of our pain doesn't come from the event, but from how we let it live in our mind. So guard the gates. Be ruthless about what you consume. Books, conversations, social media, people. Ask yourself, does this make me wiser or weaker? And act accordingly. And if someone repeatedly brings confusion, self-doubt, or toxicity into your life, no matter how charming they seem, bar the gate. You owe no one access to your peace. You don't have to explain, justify, or feel guilty. Your clarity is sacred. Your mind is sovereign. So treat it like a fortress. Let in only what nourishes. Block out what corrupts. Because once your mind is clear, no manipulator can touch you. And in that clarity, you become untouchable. Number 6, forgive but never forget the lesson. There's a dangerous lie we've all been told, that forgiveness means forgetting. That to move on, you must erase the memory of what someone did to you. But the Stoics saw it differently. Forgiveness, to them, was not about pretending the past never happened. It was about freeing yourself from the emotional poison, but never throwing away the wisdom you earned through pain. Epictetus said, "When someone does you wrong, don't forget what they did, but don't let it turn you into someone bitter." In other words, you forgive so that you don't carry the weight of resentment, but you remember, so that you never walk blindly into the same fire again. Toxic people will often demand your forgiveness while continuing the very behavior that hurt you. They'll say things like, "Let it go," or "That was in the past," hoping you'll lower your guard. But Stoicism isn't about naivety. It's about clear perception. A Stoic doesn't hate the person, but they see them clearly. And once you truly see someone's nature, you don't pretend it's something else just to keep the peace. Take the example of Maya Angelou, who wasn't a Stoic, but embodied Stoic strength. She once said, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." That's the Stoic way. You don't need 100 apologies. You need consistent action. You need to honor the truth of what happened. Not to seek vengeance, but to protect your future. Forgiveness is for you. It's a choice to release anger, not to reopen access. You can forgive someone and still cut off contact. You can let go of the pain without letting them back into your life. That's not cold, it's wise. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal multiple times during his reign. He forgave many, but he did not forget. He kept his circle tight and his perception sharp. He never let his emotions cloud his judgment. That's what you must learn to do, because every painful experience carries a lesson, and to forget that lesson is to invite the same wound again. Seneca put it simply: to be angry is to revenge the faults of others upon ourselves. Forgive so you don't poison your own peace. But remember, so you never allow that poison near you again. You owe it to yourself to stop carrying the bitterness, but you also owe it to yourself to never again hand your trust to someone who proved they don't deserve it. So yes, forgive, but never forget what the pain taught you. That wisdom was paid for in suffering. Don't let it go to waste. Number 7, live boldly without apology. There will always be people who are uncomfortable with your growth, not because you've harmed them, but because your evolution reminds them of their own stagnation. The more you rise, the more they shrink in comparison. And rather than doing the work to rise with you, they'll try to pull you back down. They'll say you've changed, that you've become selfish, that you're too much. But the Stoic path is not about shrinking to make others feel better. It's about standing tall in your truth, calmly, boldly, without apology. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, stop explaining. Stop seeking permission. Just live it. Let your actions speak. Let your discipline and courage define you. Toxic people don't want you to be bold. They want you to be small. They want you to stay confused, dependent, hesitant, because boldness threatens the illusion of control they hold over you. When you begin to stand firm in your values, your worth, your direction, they can no longer manipulate your guilt. They can no longer distort your choices. And so they'll do what manipulators do best: criticize, mock, gossip, gaslight. Not because you've done something wrong, but because you've done something powerful. The Stoic doesn't seek conflict, but he also doesn't retreat from truth. Living boldly is not about arrogance. It's about alignment. It means living in a way that matches your principles, even when it's inconvenient, even when people talk, even when it means losing relationships you once thought were unbreakable. Think of Frederick Douglass. Born into slavery, he refused to accept the life others assigned to him. He escaped, educated himself, and became one of the greatest orators and thinkers of his time. Many hated him for it. He was mocked, hunted, threatened, but he did not apologize for rising. He did not lower his voice to be less threatening. He lived his truth, and that truth changed history. That is the Stoic spirit. Calm, steady defiance in the face of unjust expectations. Seneca warned, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." That means we fear criticism like it will kill us, and yet we chase approval as if we'll live forever. But the Stoic path is different. It asks, what if you stopped apologizing for your strength? What if you stopped dimming your light for people who live in the shadows? To live boldly means to take up space, not arrogantly, but authentically. It means speaking when something must be said. It means leaving when something must be left. It means building your life not around approval, but around truth. So live boldly, speak with clarity, walk with purpose, and if someone resents your confidence, let it be a mirror to their own hesitation. You were not born to shrink. You were born to stand, to rise, not above others, but above fear. Number 8, surround yourself with resilient allies. No one walks the Stoic path alone. Yes, Stoicism teaches self-reliance, inner strength, and emotional discipline, but it never glorifies isolation. Even Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome and one of the most disciplined Stoic minds in history, acknowledged the power of companionship. He wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." That last word, to love, was not sentimental. It was essential, because resilience isn't just built in solitude. It's reinforced in connection. Toxic people isolate you, not always physically but mentally. They surround you with doubt, plant seeds of insecurity, and slowly separate you from anyone who supports your truth. Why? Because a lone target is easier to control. But when you are surrounded by strong, grounded, emotionally intelligent people who reflect your strength back to you, you become unshakable. The Stoics understood the power of what we now call social contagion. You absorb the energy, beliefs, and habits of the people closest to you. Seneca said, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." That's not about elitism. That's about survival. Because just as you must guard your mind like a fortress, you must guard your inner circle like your life depends on it, because it does. Look at the life of Viktor Frankl. A psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, he lived through some of the darkest conditions imaginable. He was stripped of everything: his freedom, his family, his dignity. But one of the things that helped him survive was the strength he found in others. Those who still held on to decency, who still shared a crust of bread, who still whispered words of hope. In the worst possible place, surrounded by despair, the presence of resilient allies helped keep his mind free. That's what you need. People who don't just comfort you, but challenge you. People who don't let you drown in self-pity, who call out your greatness when you forget it, who remind you who you are when the world tries to convince you otherwise. And you must be that ally for others too, because every time you show someone what strength looks like, calm under pressure, kindness with boundaries, love without self-abandonment, you give them permission to rise as well. That's how the Stoic circle grows. Not through noise, but through example. Not through argument, but through integrity. There will be times when the cost of keeping toxic people around becomes unbearable, and you'll have to choose: the familiarity of dysfunction or the unfamiliar clarity of real support. Choose wisely, because your future depends on it. You are not meant to do life alone, but you are meant to be discerning. Choose those who walk beside you with courage, not those who hold your hand while cutting your wings. The Stoic way is not just about enduring, it's about evolving. And that evolution is faster, deeper, and stronger when you walk with resilient allies. Toxic people don't just waste your time, they confuse your identity, drain your energy, and make you forget your worth. But Stoic philosophy gives you the tools to rise, not through revenge, not through rage, but through reason. You don't need to yell. You don't need to explain. You don't need to chase closure from those who thrive on chaos. What you need is clarity, boundaries, inner strength, silence where there used to be over-explaining, focus where there used to be confusion, power that comes not from domination, but from self-mastery. Remember this: your peace is not up for negotiation. Your mind is not public property. Your life is not a playground for broken people who refuse to heal. You are here to live boldly, to protect your spirit, to walk away when necessary, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. So choose silence, choose clarity, choose growth, and above all, choose yourself. If this message spoke to something deep in you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and keep walking the Stoic path, quietly, powerfully, unapologetically,